Well, hello, hello, and welcome to the show, a show where four guys get together and talk about the shows. This week we have the new Amazon animated series, Undone. I am one of your hosts, Jay. You can find me out there at Jay Suesponte. Together we also have Aaron.
Hey, you can find me at Tenacious Aaron on Twitter.
We've got Adam.
Hey, I'm Adam. You can't find me anywhere. I'm a recluse.
You can find Adam at Adam Dong. You can find the show at the Show Pod. You can also email us the Show TV podcast at gmail.com. And our fourth and very special host today
One of those
is
things
Tony.
was a lie.
Yes, hello, I'm Tony. You can find me on Twitter at tpinquite1 or on Instagram at tpinquite. I guess I was faster on Instagram, so didn't have to use the one there. But
Well, tell us about Undone, Tony. This was your selection, if I remember
yes,
correctly.
I won the last Wheel of Pandemonium, and Undone was my choice. Actually recommended to me by a friend, but to copy Wikipedia's description, the premise is that Undone explores the elastic nature of reality through its central character, Alma. And then, so after getting into a nearly fatal accident, she discovers a new relationship with time, space, and uses this ability to find the truth about her father's death. To go into a little bit more detail, her father died under mysterious circumstances to her when she was very young. And it's kind of like a journey of her developing these powers, along with she sees her dead father as he's trying to guide her to change the past and discover more about his death. And then it kind of leaves it open to your interpretation because her family does have a history of schizophrenia, so you have to make your own determination on, is she experiencing these things such as time space manipulation, or because of the head trauma she experienced in her car accident, is she hallucinating? And then also her family history of mental illness. But that's basically a summary. We can open it up.
And it's done in the cell shaded kind of style. So if you've seen Scanner Darkly or
some video games like Borderlands, where it has this cel-shaded art style. It really represents that in a positive light here. This show is interesting because, kind of like what Tony was saying, it leaves it up to the interpretation of the viewer as to whether this is just a classic case of schizophrenia or there's some reality bending properties to it. Kind of a weird one. A little trippy.
Well, before we get into the big questions of this show, let me pose you a little question. Did you guys, as fellow Texans, enjoy the setting of this show?
was it set in Dallas?
No,
It was San Antonio.
Yeah.
Oh, that's right.
Because they, the main character's boyfriend, he's a waiter on the Riverwalk, and like they pretty clearly were trying to recreate Casa Rio, which is that restaurant on the Riverwalk with all those colorful umbrellas over the tables.
Yeah, I remember that.
And like me personally, as my kind of flyover state chip on my shoulder, I enjoy it whenever a show is based somewhere other than New York or LA.
If it was in San Antonio, where are the cliffs that the dad drove off of? Because I mean, they may exist in
The
Texas.
quarry.
The
Quarry. You got to remember the Alamo was built from limestone that was quarried out of like the northwestern part of San Antonio, and so the quarry still exists that they mined that all out of.
So it's
Yeah, there's hills and stuff.
Cliff face like that.
Yeah, that definitely. If you go down there, there's entire like subdivisions that they've built down in that area now called the quarry. And it's the historical area where they mined out all the limestone to build 1800, Mesa proto San Antonio.
Interesting.
I always love a shout out to Texas being a location, I guess. Part of my brainwashing from early age, probably.
Well, there was one show I really like called The Good Guys, and it's set in Dallas.
Mm-hmm.
And that was one thing that was nice because they would show something and you'd be like, oh, I actually know where that is. That's actually a part of Dallas. Like, no one would park there, be able to park there, live in Airstream in front of Fair Park and live there. That's absolute bullshit.
It'll be towed in an hour and a half.
But so me and Adam have talked about this a little bit, but what did you guys think that the art style worked? Like, was it effective did they use it as an effective storytelling tool, or did it feel like kind of like extra crap that they threw on top that they didn't have to?
I think it was necessary. It's kind of like, I hate to mention anime all the time. Like, if you tried to make it an anime show live action as good as that, but like the cost would be way too much. I think they did it as a necessity, like the themes and the time space stuff and like the kind of like supernatural, fantastical elements of the show. To do that where everything was realistic, I think the budget would have exploded probably on this show. Whereas they can just like, let's put a contrast, cell shade filter on it, and then we can do like 2D animations basically almost for the harder stuff.
Yeah, that's basically what I was thinking too. Because this is a show that unspools itself very slowly at times, especially at the beginning, because our entire first episodes, we don't have anything supernatural or out of the ordinary until the very end. And so throughout that episode, I was questioning the animation style, wondering what the point was, and honestly a little annoyed by it. But once we got into episode 2, where she starts sliding in and out of space and time, it made more sense to me. And I would argue that from that point on, I think, yes, it was effective. What were you guys thinking?
Adam, thoughts?
I see y'all's point and why it was necessary for the show, and why from episode 2 going forward, it played a pretty important role. I just thought there were a few laggy moments in the animation that were kind of jarring and immersion breaking, that more so distracted from the show. Like, especially if you looked at body movements and how they would move across the screen, so to speak. Like, there would be moments where it was just like, what? That doesn't seem right. It was like a laggy moment. That's the best way I know how to describe it. And that was a little breaking, but I do understand for some of the vistas, so to speak, that they had to portray. It was pretty important. It played an important role. I'm not sure how much I liked it personally.
I think I'm sorry, go ahead.
I was just gonna say I do feel that in a way, like all the way up until the very end, it did capture me. It did, like I wanted to know what happened, what they were trying to unravel. Like, and I felt like the art style in a way also added to that mystery, because it added, like, in the way where, like, if somebody was like, oh, you're having hallucinations, and you're like, oh, well, you can't tell what's real and what's not, but visually you to an extent can't tell what's real and what's not, what's an actual conversation that she's having versus what's a memory that she's having and experiencing. So, and I felt like the art style really added a lot to that. So,
I mean, I think if this show was made in 1995, we'd probably have a mixture of live action scenes and then animated scenes. But I think if you did it that way, me personally, that would pull me out of it. And I think the phrase Adam used was immersion breaking. I think that would be much more immersion breaking for me than what they did here with I think it's called rotoscoping. Because from what I understand, I think what they have to do is they actually film these scenes with live actors, and then they go back and they trace over the film, and that's how they create the animation. So, with the exception of the sort of special effects shots, for just like the dialogue scenes, they just had to film it anyway.
well, Scanner Darkly came out in 2006. What was the one that came out before Scanner Darkly? Does anyone remember? The other, like, rotoscope, like, big film.
You got me, man.
Yeah, sorry. Don't know.
I just remember Scanner Darkly and then the one other one that was just very, very similar to it, and it might be Richard Linklater also.
Osmosis Jones.
Waking Life. Waking Life. Waking Life is also the cell shaded kind of rotoscope style. So those were two big movies. That was 2001 and 2006. That style, like, I guess, broke into the pop culture.
I mean, it's not my favorite, but I think it got the job done here.
So do you think she's crazy, or is it, she just dislodged from time?
She's crazy.
I
Sorry.
want the fantastical to be true, so I guess I'll keep believing it.
I want it to be true too, but a key point for me is like, why at the last scene when she's like, "Let me just stay and watch the cave, make sure Dad's not in there," right? The sister could have stayed behind, and if she's not crazy, I think the producers would have had the sister stay behind, so we got the facial expression from the sister too, who is not, supposedly not schizophrenic, and that would have cleared up all misunderstandings. Oh my gosh, this is real. But the sister didn't stay behind. She went to the car. And then Alma sees the cave and she has this shocked expression on her face, which just shows to me that she's feeding into her own delusions, finding a way for it to be real. And then, you know,
Well, but how do you reconcile the things that she knew that even contextually she should not have been able to know, like about like the lady having a little girl who had
Sophia.
died, or whatever.
Or the mom kicking the dad out.
Yeah, or the mom kicking that out and why, or that she was there that night. There's no way for her to have known that.
I mean,
Having been
if I was coming at it from a skeptical angle, kind of like the boyfriend pointed out, there could be a screensaver. There's tons of small details that the human mind picks up subconsciously that we don't fully understand, and maybe her brain had a method of picking up subconscious details and then acting on them. I mean, there are explanations for it, but who's to say? Who's really to say? I think the only way to find out would be to get her into a lab and run tests, which is kind of ironic because that's what the dad wanted to do. But that was apparently a oh no. So I mean, it's hard to say like where that info came from.
I think it's intentional by the writers or the creators or whatever. Like, reminds me of one of my favorite shows, or maybe my favorite show, The Leftovers, where like they specifically leave enough doubt for both, because it's like a similar: is this character crazy, hallucinating, or are the supernatural elements real? Like, and like I feel like they purposefully, yeah, they make sure the character is always alone when that stuff happens. So is it alone because, I don't know. I think it's on purpose. And I kind of like that part of it. Maybe it's because I like The Leftovers that I like that part of this one too. But yeah, I think that's intentional. They had the sister leave, so you could be like, you never really know. Yeah, is she crazy or is this happening?
Yeah, I definitely got some Leftovers vibes here. Maybe that's why I like this show.
Agreed.
This show reminded me a lot of Wilfred in the sense that it does like a deep dive into psychology from the perspective of the person affected by the psychological disorder. And
you don't feel Legion, like that seemed to be a big theme in Legion too.
Legion maybe, but Legion definitely got more into the Marvel superpower universe. So it's kind of hard for me to like put that in the same category as like a deep psychology show because he did actually have superpowers. So it's not exactly the same. I mean, there's definitely some tendencies that you can pick up, and that if you're a psych professor, you'd probably love to watch because you can see all that stuff. But I don't know. I just see them as two different shows because they're more grounded to reality. Shows like Undone and Wilfred are more grounded to reality than something like Legion. there's not
Like it's
really
crazy
a
people in the real
fantastical.
world, not crazy people in Marvel.
Well, there's not really a fantastical element for anybody else. It's just for the main characters, right? So in Legion, like when he started moving
Well,
shit around with his
hold
mind,
on, hold on.
everybody else could see him moving shit around with his mind.
But in
Whereas in
Wilfred,
these
the
shows,
mom had a cat that she had the exact same phenomenon with. Like there were other characters in it in his family who had a similar kind of psychosis or delusion. So I mean, it's not necessarily fantastical, but I will at least point out that that's one of the things with Wilfred that kind of like Tony's saying, they obscure the answer enough to where you can choose to believe it's all crazy or it's all real, and you're not really wrong either way. That's what I think that these kind of shows want to leave you in, is they don't want to answer it. They want to leave it in the unknown. Because in a certain regard, doesn't it kind of also make it a better story where your mind gets to fill how you feel the story should play out, as opposed to them just telling you the answer and being like, oh, yeah, that was a shitty ending, Game of Thrones. I wish you would have just left us all hanging.
sounds like
Man,
you got some beef with Game of Thrones. Maybe some chicken.
The
with
last
Game of
season was
Thrones.
pretty shit. I think universally that's
Yeah.
what people think.
Agreed. Man, these like cerebral shows, like you ever feel kind of like, I don't, scared is too strong of a word, but just like, man, the mind is a crazy thing. Like, so powerful. Like, it's like scary. Like, if that was happening to me, I don't know if I would slip into it or not.
It definitely is one of those things where, because I have had family members who have had like Alzheimer's or something like that, like seeing what the human mind can do and do to itself it's a little crazy. It's a little nerve wracking.
Agreed.
Jay, if you've been saying stuff, you've been muted. I think maybe I see your name popping up sometimes, but
Oh no,
And-
I've just been listening.
He's just been
did the
absorbing
art
it.
style not make Alma, or I think I looked her name up, was Rosa Salazar, look just like Aubrey Plaza?
Very,
Yes,
very
Hairstyle.
close.
yes.
Very, very close.
Very much so. It also made it a little difficult to believe that Bob Odenkirk was part indigenous, but
Yeah.
maybe that was just my own baggage.
Can I
He
also say
wasn't, I don't
this?
think.
Was there a point to the cochlear implant? I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing that right, but the like her Alma's character,
Mhm.
like she's schizophrenic, maybe, or it's in her bloodline. She's also apparently deaf, and she gets the implant. But why? I guess as a storytelling vehicle, why was that necessary? Why was that really a part of the story? Just so
I
she
think
could
it-
like turn off the real world, maybe add to her delving into her own mentality. I don't know. Like to me, I just was like, okay, I guess she's got a disability.
I think it adds to that theme of perception versus reality. When does it match? When does it not? And how our perceptions of that reality as humans are inherently flawed, but they can be augmented sometimes through technology and Western medicine, and
Mm.
sometimes through more spiritualistic means. I think that we see through the indigenous, the drum circles and the songs and things we saw on the show. I think that's where it comes in there for me.
Well, very good.
Yeah,
It also
I
could
kinda
just
used
be
to-
that, it's 2021 and we have to start checking boxes about people's identities. And here we have a disabled woman of color. So you just check, 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 you know?
Yeah, well, they also use it kind of as a way to show that she's kind of lived her whole life, kind of trying to, not really making her own decisions that affect her life in a big way, kind of trying to please people. That's kind of why she's like mad at herself and the world, kind of too.
I felt bad for the boyfriend, like in a similar situation, everything that's going on. Normalcy probably is the best thing for someone with head trauma. So I didn't feel that he was necessarily a bad guy for just, oh, we didn't break up. I don't
Yeah,
know.
like what a position.
There are
you
some
put in.
selfish motives there, though.
There are, but at the same time, it is true that like routine and normalcy are some of the best things for people who have amnesia or have head trauma or memory
But
issues.
if that was his only goal, why move or rearrange the apartment?
Well, everything had been moved out. It wasn't rearranged.
Yeah, I
Oh,
don't
He
think he
he
did it
had to put
intentionally.
he had to put it back, and he just didn't put it back right. So that's why everyone kept saying, "Did y'all rearrange this?"
Right.
I think just like everyone in the show was a little bit of an asshole.
Mm-hmm.
Like the boyfriend's a little bit of an asshole, even though he seems to be a good guy in most respects. I mean, there's an easy solution to be like, hey, the doctors say you need to decompress by yourself. I moved all my stuff out to give you some space. Like that is an option he could have taken.
True.
Versus like, I don't know, like in a court of law, he probably borderline rape's a strong word, but like if he had sex with her like under false pretenses, that's like I think criminally. Well, y'all are lawyers, so y'all know better than me, but like it's like having sex without like saying you're gonna use a condom and not using a condom or something. It's like almost like a trick.
There is definitely fraud or at least fraud potentially involved. Like if you like let's say like you marry someone and then secretly divorce them, you know, and you get property or something like that, you're defrauding them, acting like you're married. So I feel like that this is just fraud.
Yeah, that's why I said that's too strong of a word for it. But yeah, like nobody was a good person in this show that I can think of, like all the way through.
Shitty humans doing shitty things makes the best television.
what about the dad's assistant? She seemed pretty like just screwed over in every way.
Yeah, the children's like a teacher guy. He seemed pretty pure.
Yeah, it's true.
Was that Jefferson from Hamilton?
No, it was David Diggs.
Yeah,
Okay.
that's exactly who that is.
Oh wow. I'm sorry. It is Jefferson.
It is him. That is Jefferson from Hamilton.
Yeah, it's the guy
Like
from
he's
Hamilton. Yeah.
Lafayette.
I kept seeing his face. I kept hearing myself him say, "What did I miss?" And I was like, "Is that him? That's him.
Mhm.
That's not him."
No, that's him.
Yeah, it's Lafayette and Jefferson.
Yeah,
Plays both roles.
that's crazy. So well, very cool. Well, I guess are we ready for some scoring? Or are we where are we at?
Sure. Let's get some
Because of where
scoring
they
in.
left the show, there's not really like much we can definitively say like on the ending, right? It's open ended on both sides.
I guess we could describe if we want to go like spoilers to describe how the plot ended up, basically from the
Well,
main
we
Yeah.
perspective.
generally are. This is a spoiler cast, so if you haven't watched the show, I feel bad because we've said definitely lots of things like driving off cliffs and stuff.
Yeah.
Well, I thought the reveal that the father killed himself due to everything about his life all caving in on him, I thought that really soured the ending for me, and just made everything that came before it just feel
Less than.
pointless. Less than, yeah, that's a good way of putting it. Um, so
Like a big
I was
red
really let down
herring.
by the ending. What about you guys?
Yeah, me too, in a way. Like, they kind of brought it back a little bit for the potential for some fantastical option, but I mean, it kind of shows that, like, first of all, the dad didn't have any information, right? After the incident, he didn't, like, remember anything conveniently after he left Alma. So he has no idea who could have possibly killed him or anything like that. And then you also have when all the suspects are investigated enough by Alma, the truth is finally revealed that it was never a murder. It was I guess it was murder suicide. Uh, in in the sense that the dad drove off the cliff. So it's tricky, and that you're
Can
right. It definitely leaves a sour taste.
to me that choice to have that be the outcome revealed to me, or at least solidified in my mind, that she was crazy. And the reason why is that he didn't know that if it was fantastical, if it was time traveling ghost, then he would have known from the get go. The fact that once she knows, he now knows, to me reinforced
Mm.
that it was just a figment of her mind. It was just the disease, the um, psychosis that was driving the ship. And the moment that that new data was entered into her mind, her entire framework starts shifting. The figure starts saying, "I'm not worth saving. Our original value system and the framework by which we were operating under no longer works." And to me, that is more how human minds operate. Like self-rationalizing to a certain degree. So that's how I saw the ending. Was that it was kind of a confirmation that, yeah, you're just crazy. Your dad was crazy. Your grandma was crazy. Your dad killed himself, and you're now slipping into a tetherless reality.
Also, when the dad kind of explains away, well, I assumed it was because of a trauma that I didn't remember because of the crash. Now I'm starting to see that it may be something more. Alma just follows right along with it. There's no questions. There's no like, wait a minute, that doesn't exactly
That
make
makes
sense. It's
sense. That
just like,
makes sense.
no, it's like, oh, that makes total sense, of course, right? And that kind of goes along with that self-rationalizing part of, yep, no, that tracks. We'll just go with it. So probably crazy.
There's a lot of problems with time travel in general. It's like once you start thinking too much about it.
That's true.
Yeah, but there's a way to do it well, and it does inevitably involve some hand waving and some smoke and mirrors and misdirection, and it will unravel if you think about it too much. But there are examples of shows and movies that can do it well. If you guys have ever seen it's just like an HBO movie. Oh God, what's it called? Frequently Asked
I was
Questions
about
about
to
time
say that.
travel.
Yeah, so good.
Like that's a great example of how they do time travel in a fun way where you know I think the light tone of it allows you to not pick it apart too much, but maybe the constant dark and serious tone of this show kind of invites that kind of criticism.
Also true. And also, no one takes Hot Tub Time Machine seriously.
Another great example.
It's a fun time travel movie that's like, don't think about it. Don't think about it. You know?
Yeah, like in the Star Trek films, the one where they do time travel like the most or to the greatest extent in the plot is the one where they're rescuing whales. It's the silly one.
Yeah.
Like,
Hot Tub Time Machine reminds me. Do y'all ever watch those? I think they're done by Screen Rant, but pitch meetings for all the different movies.
No.
Oh, they're pretty good. They're like basically spoiler ridden, but they're just like they take a movie and the guy pretends to be an assistant pitching a movie to a movie exec, and they kind of just like pull all the plot holes. But you mentioned Hot Tub Time Machine. It made me think of this joke on Avengers Endgame. He's like, yeah, they reference all these time travel movies like Hot Tub Time Machine. She's like, wait, they reference Hot Tub Time Machine where Sebastian Stan is a character in that movie, but he's also the Winter Soldier in the Avengers. I feel like there's a couple other movies in there like that.
I love meta stuff like that. That's always great.
well, good news is we're going to get a season 2 of Undone, according to Wikipedia.
I would watch it. I'd like to see where they go with it. I'd like to see now what they do with it. But I will also say I'm a little skeptical
Mhm.
because of how they chose to end it. Like
Mhm.
it's going to be hard for them to pull it back. Like I felt like up to that moment they had done a good job of keeping it. Is it crazy? Is it real? And then for me, that was just kind of the moment that I was like, oh, she's crazy. Okay,
Mhm.
so that's just how I felt.
Yeah, I
I
wonder if that
guarantee
was a
you, if they
plan
do
for.
come back, they're gonna be like, she's gonna find another rationalization of why this is true, but she can't prove it to anybody, and then you're just gonna go along for another season 2 of what we saw in season 1.
I wonder if it was always the plan for season 2 because I feel like they left some things without payoff, which maybe they just forget because it happens. But like, I thought, because there's a couple times where she talks to herself like, "No, I don't think that's a good idea," but you don't actually see her. Like usually, you see what she sees in this
Mhm.
specific case, and there's a couple times where you don't. You just see her talking to the thin air, or like the camera's facing her, and what she's talking to is where the camera is, I guess. You don't see it, and like almost, and her grandmother, what's her name, Geraldine or Gertrude, is a G name. She like says almost the same thing. Like when she's cleaning and her dad's a young boy, she's like talking to something. I don't know, when she's at the door confronting that Daryl guy, Mr. Skinny Arms. Uh, I feel like she loses her memory. Like she just stops and she turns around and rings the doorbell. She's like, "We gotta talk to this guy." Like she was almost possessing herself, kind of like her dad does to his self, or what we think he does in her flashbacks. So I kind of wonder if they left those things, and like the little boy, she kept seeing him drowning. That never had a payoff. I wonder if they left those things on purpose, and maybe we see like her visit her grandmother, or her talking to herself again in scenes from this season and the next season or something.
I could see them. It could be really interesting, and maybe they pull it back somehow. But I don't know. I'm curious, so I'll give it a watch. But I'm skeptical.
I'll probably watch the first 2 episodes because this is one of those shows where it's like, hey, don't just watch the first episode. Don't just test pilot the first episode because, in my opinion, the first episode pretty garbage. You definitely need to like watch 3, maybe 4 episodes before this really hits its stride. And for the first or the second season, I'm gonna continue that methodology and like probably watch 2 or 3 before I give it a judgment call. Because I ended up just watching episode 1 from the show and was like, oh my god, this is gonna be terrible. It's gonna be awful. And then by the 3rd episode, I was pretty hooked, like decently surprised. But still, it can be a slog at times. It definitely has its slow moments.
I was
So
glad the episodes were short too. I think that probably
yeah,
helps deal with the animation style too. If you were to watch it on a weekly basis, it's a lot easier to. It's more palatable in shorter doses. I feel than like if they were hour plus episodes.
Yeah, agreed. An hour of that would have been a beating.
for sure.
Well, shall we rate this show and get out of here?
Well, and Wheel of Randomonium.
Wheel of Randomonium. Can't forget about that. Well, let's start with Aaron. Give us a rating on Undone, season 1.
I think that it had a lot of interesting things. I think it's tapping into a lot of interesting aspects of modern society and people's insecurities with their minds. And in that regard, I felt like it was fertile ground to have some really interesting stories told. I felt that some of it I felt a little bit preached at to some degree. Like I felt like a lot of the drama stuff was so crafted heavily that I was like, ugh, I just felt a bit trudgy at that. But I thought I did feel that the art style paid off. I felt like that helped me immerse into her psychosis and or time travel a little bit better. And so I'd probably give this like a 6.2. I think that it could have done better, been a little more interesting. I do feel that the art style carried it. That's if this was not done in this art style, this show probably would have been a little bit more throwaway, forgettable. But because the art style was there, it has this unique touch to it that makes it stand out a little more. So that would be my thoughts.
It's 6.2 from Aaron. How about you, Adam?
I'm gonna give this a 6. I think it's a show worth watching. I don't think it's the greatest show. It has some niche elements that kind of make it different from shows like it. Art style being one of them. It can be slow at times, and that's really a problem for me in the show because when I sit down to watch a show, I don't kind of like what Aaron said. I don't really want to be preached at. I want to be entertained. And this had moments where it was just like, okay, you have to tell me all this stuff to get your point across, but I don't really want to hear it. I just want the show to progress. So that kind of throws in a few minuses for me, but I think 6 is where the show should sit at. And hopefully they come back and like really redeem themselves with a season 2. But I'm not going to hold my breath for it.
All right, 6 from Adam. For me, I really enjoyed this show for the first 6, 7 episodes. I felt like I really got to know the characters and cared about them, even though they all have their flaws, but they all were just real people. It felt. I agree with what you guys are saying about the animation style. In the long run, it kind of wore on me. Wasn't really my favorite thing, but then the ending, it really killed it for me. So I think this went from a solid 8 to I'm going to give it a 6.5. Would I recommend this to other people after the that last episode? I'm not really sure, and I might wait until some of you guys watch season 2 to see if I'm in for that. So that's a 6.5 for me. How about you, Tony? This is your pick. Give us your thoughts.
Yeah, dang. I don't want to seem like a copycat. I'm gonna match your 6.5 skinny arms out of 10 with my. I thought that acting was really good. Like Rosa Salazar, Alma. I really, I feel like she was the character. Like I thought she did a great job. Everyone did good, but I feel like she was excellent. And I really like. I feel like the moments with her and Sam, Alma and Sam, her boyfriend's character, uh, were really good and well written. And then yeah, the art style I think it'll age well. Like if they did this with CG, because I mean there was gonna have to be some heavy CG elements. Not that there wasn't any CG, but like if they tried to make it lifelike or photorealistic in 5 years from now, we'd be looking at it like. But I think the art style might buy it some longevity, be nicer to it in the history books. So yeah, 6.5 for me. I did enjoy it. I hope, yeah, that I think they could have done some of the elements better, but I'll probably watch the second season.
All right, we got a 6.5 from Tony. That gives us an average score of 6.3, which looks like this will put it kind of at the top of the bottom quarter, sandwiched between Cowboy Bebop and the first season of Ozark.
I can see. Yeah, I think that's fair. Well, are we ready to spin to win?
Let's do it.
All right, here we go. Start sharing. Tell me, make sure that y'all got this.
Oh, wait, hold on. Before we spin, have you spun yet? No.
I've not spun.
Can I change my show?
Of course. Previously, Jay had notified me that Underground Railroad was his pick. We're now picking that, changing that.
I would like to change that to a show called Siesta Key. It's a show about intrigue between wealthy young people on the Florida coast.
Why?
Yeah.
Okay. What? Okay. So, Invincible. What is that on?
It's on Amazon. It's an animated, like superhero type show is what it looks like. I haven't seen it, but it's been pretty hyped up lately.
Okay. Toast of London's on Netflix. Shadow and Bone Netflix. Siesta Key.
It's on Paramount Plus.
Paramount. Okay. All right. Are we ready to spin?
Sure thing.
I'm ready.
I'm going to shuffle to keep it as random as possible. And here we go.
Siesta Key.
Wow.
Right.
I can't wait. I can't wait.
The Siesta Key on Paramount Plus, I'll have to look into that because I'm not sure that I have that. But that is fantastic.
I might know a guy who knows a guy.
About yachting, is this one of those ones where we're going to watch people who are completely disconnected from the real world yachting around on their yachts?
All of that's true except for the yacht part, yes.
Oh, you can watch it on MTV too.
Yeah.
Not MTV2? Or like also?
No, it was originally aired on MTV, the network.
Well, very good. Well, that is our show for next time. I hope everyone enjoyed our episode today over Undone. Feel that we were all undone at the end of it.
Well, thanks for joining us, everybody, and we will see you next time with a review of MTV's Siesta Key.